Most people believe they are seeing reality. They are not. They are seeing what their minds have been trained to notice. Two people can walk through the same city under the same sky, surrounded by the same opportunities, and leave with completely different experiences. One notices the traffic, the noise, the problems, the disrespect, the things that went wrong. The other notices the sunlight reflecting off a window, the unexpected kindness of a stranger, the quiet moment before the world becomes busy, the fact that he is still alive and capable of beginning again. The world did not change. Most people believe they see the world as it is. They do not. They see the world through the filter of their attention. And attention is not neutral. It is selective, trained, and shaped by repetition. What you consistently focus on begins to feel like the most important truth about your life, even when it represents only a small fraction of reality. This is why two people can experience the same day and walk away with completely different emotions. One person wakes up and immediately notices what is wrong. The weather is unpleasant. The messages are unanswered. The work is stressful. The future is uncertain. His mind moves naturally toward problems, threats, disappointments, and everything he believes is missing. By the end of the day, he concludes that life is difficult and unfair. Another person may experience the same circumstances and notice something else. A moment of quiet, a conversation that made him laugh, a task he completed, a small opportunity. The fact that he has another day to improve. The problems have not disappeared, but they are no longer the entire story. The world did not change. The attention did. Your mind is constantly deciding what deserves your emotional energy. Every moment, thousands of things exist around you, but you notice only a small portion of them. You do not pay attention to every sound, every face, every movement, every possibility. Your mind filters reality, and over time, the things you repeatedly choose to notice become the landscape of your inner world. If you constantly search for betrayal, you will begin to see betrayal everywhere. If you constantly search for rejection, you will interpret neutral behavior as rejection. If you constantly search for evidence that life is unfair, you will collect every disappointment and ignore every moment of good fortune. But the opposite is also true. If you train yourself to notice opportunities, you will begin to recognize possibilities that were always present but invisible to you. If you notice kindness, you will become more aware of the people who quietly care. If you notice progress, you will stop dismissing your own growth simply because you have not yet reached the final destination. This is not about pretending that life is perfect. It is about understanding that your attention has power. A negative event can happen in the morning and you can allow it to dominate the next 12 hours. Someone can insult you in 10 seconds and you can replay their words for the rest of the day. A single failure can become the evidence you use to judge your entire identity. But why? Why should one moment be allowed to define every other moment? This is how people lose control of their emotional lives. They allow the loudest event to become the most important event. Pain is loud, fear is loud, anger is loud, gratitude is often quiet, peace is quiet, progress is quiet. The good things in life rarely demand your attention. They wait for you to notice them. A trained mind learns to ask a different question when something goes wrong. Instead of immediately asking, why is everything happening to me? It asks, what else is true? You failed, but what else is true? You still have the ability to learn. You were rejected, but what else is true? You are now free to redirect your energy. You are going through a difficult period, but what else is true? You have survived difficult periods before. The negative event may still be real. The pain may still exist, but it no longer has complete control over your perception. This is where your power begins. You cannot control every event that enters your life. You cannot prevent every disappointment, betrayal, loss, or failure, but you can train yourself to stop allowing one negative experience to erase everything else that remains. Your attention is a weapon, and like any weapon, it can be used against you if you do not control it. Every time you obsess over what is wrong while ignoring what is still working, you strengthen the habit of negativity. Every time you deliberately notice something good, however small, you weaken that habit. The goal is not to become naive. The goal is to become complete. See the problem, but also see the possibility. See the loss, but also see what remains. See the failure, but also see the lesson. See the darkness, but do not become blind to the light that still exists somewhere within it, because the life you experience is shaped not only by what happens to you, but by what your mind repeatedly chooses to place at the center of your awareness. And when you begin to control that choice, you slowly begin to change the reality you live inside. One of the most dangerous habits of the human mind is the tendency to allow a single negative moment to become the definition of an entire day, an entire relationship, or even an entire life. Something goes wrong, and suddenly the mind begins to rewrite everything around it. One mistake becomes proof that you are incompetent. One rejection becomes proof that you are unwanted. One betrayal becomes proof that nobody can be trusted. One bad day becomes evidence that life itself is against you. This is how the mind creates unnecessary suffering. The event may have lasted seconds, minutes, or hours, but through repetition, interpretation, and emotional attachment, you allow it to continue long after it has ended. The person who insulted of you has moved on. The conversation is over. The failure has already happened. The opportunity has already passed. Yet inside your mind, the moment continues to exist. You replay it, you analyze it, you imagine different responses, you create arguments that never happened. You keep returning to the same emotional scene, giving it new life every time you remember it, and slowly one moment becomes your entire reality. This is a mistake. A single event is information, not a complete identity. It may reveal something important, but it does not automatically define everything. You can fail without being a failure. You can be rejected without being undesirable. You can be betrayed without becoming incapable of trusting anyone again. You can experience a terrible day without having a terrible life. The mind often wants simple conclusions because simple conclusions feel safe. Everything is bad. Nobody cares. I always lose. Nothing ever works out. These statements create a false sense of certainty. They may be painful, but they are easy to understand. Complexity is more difficult. The truth is often more complicated. Something can go wrong while other things remain right. You can be disappointed and still have hope. You can be struggling and still be making progress. You can be hurt and still possess strength. This is why you must learn to separate the event from the story you attach to it. The event is what happened. The story is what you decide it means. Someone does not respond to your message. The event is simple. They did not respond. But the mind begins to create a story. They do not respect me. I am being ignored. Nobody values me. Perhaps the story is true. Perhaps it is not. But your emotional reaction is often based not on the event itself, but on the meaning you immediately attach to it. A trained mind pauses before accepting the first interpretation. It asks, what do I actually know? This question can save you from enormous amounts of unnecessary suffering. You know that the person did not respond. You do not necessarily know why. You know that you failed at something. You do not know that you will always fail. You know that someone betrayed you. You do not know that every person will betray you. You know that today was difficult. You do not know that tomorrow will be the same. The mind wants to turn temporary experiences into permanent predictions. Your job is to stop it. When something negative happens, refuse to give it more power than it deserves. Analyze it, learn from it, correct what must be corrected, but do not allow it to invade every area of your life. A conflict at work should not destroy your evening with your family. A rejection from one person should not make you distrust everyone. A financial setback should not convince you that you have no future. One negative moment belongs to one moment. Do not allow it to steal the moments that have not yet happened. There is a discipline in this. You must consciously interrupt the mind when it begins to exaggerate. When you hear yourself saying everything is going wrong, stop and ask everything. When you think nothing good ever happens to me, ask yourself whether that is actually true. When you say my life is ruined, ask what specifically has been ruined and what still remains within your control. These questions force the mind to return from emotion to reality, and reality is usually more balanced than your first reaction. You may have lost something, but not everything. You may have failed, but you are not finished. You may have been hurt, but you are not powerless. You may have experienced rejection, but your future is still open. The danger is not that something bad happens. The danger is allowing that bad event to become the lens through which you view everything else. A person who allows one negative moment to define his entire life gives enormous power to randomness. He allows one conversation, one mistake, one betrayal, or one loss to become the author of his identity. But you are not required to let one chapter define the entire book. Some moments deserve to be remembered. Some deserve to be learned from. Some deserve to be released. The wisdom lies in knowing the difference, because the moment you stop allowing one negative experience to become the definition of everything, you begin to see that even after something goes wrong, there is still more life happening around you than the pain that first captured your attention. Most people are waiting for a victory so large that they can no longer deny their own progress. They imagine that one day they will achieve something significant, reach a certain level of success, earn enough money, gain enough recognition, or transform themselves so completely that they will finally feel proud. Until then, they dismiss the small victories happening in front of them every day. This is a dangerous way to live because major transformation is rarely dramatic while it is happening. It is usually hidden inside small decisions that appear insignificant at the time. You wake up when you did not feel like getting up. You complete a task you wanted to avoid. You remain silent when your old self would have reacted. You walk away from a person who constantly drains you. You resist an impulse. You keep going after disappointment. These moments may never receive applause, but they are the moments that build your character. The problem is that most people only recognize results, not progress. They look at the distance between where they are and where they want to be. They then become frustrated by how far they still have to go. They rarely look backward to see how far they have already traveled. Their attention is fixed on the mountain ahead, so they become blind to the ground they have already climbed. This creates a permanent feeling of inadequacy. No matter how much they accomplish, it is never enough. They finish one goal and immediately move to the next. They improve but refuse to acknowledge the improvement because they are still not perfect. They become stronger but focus only on their remaining weaknesses. They survive difficult experiences but never give themselves credit for surviving them. You must learn to notice the small wins because they are evidence. Evidence that you are changing. Evidence that you are capable of discipline. Evidence that you can do things differently than before. A small victory is not valuable because it it is impressive to other people. It is valuable because it proves something to you. It proves that your old patterns are not permanent. It proves that you can interrupt your instincts. It proves that you can choose a different response. Perhaps you used to react immediately whenever someone disrespected you. Now you pause. That pause may seem small, but it represents growth. You are no longer completely controlled by your emotions. Perhaps you used to chase people who ignored you. Now you recognize the pattern and step back. That decision may feel lonely, but it represents self-respect. Perhaps you used to abandon every goal when progress became slow. Now you continue for another day. That may not look like success to the outside world, but internally something important is changing. The person you become is built through these repeated moments. One disciplined choice becomes a habit. One habit becomes a pattern. One pattern becomes a character. And character eventually determines the direction of your life. But if you refuse to notice your progress, you weaken your motivation. The mind needs evidence that effort is producing change. When you constantly dismiss your own victories, you create the belief that nothing you do matters. This belief eventually becomes an excuse to stop trying. You do not need to celebrate every minor action as if you have conquered the world, but you should acknowledge what is real. You made progress. You showed restraint. You survived something difficult. You did something you once believed you could not do. You handled a situation better than you would have handled it in the past. These things matter. Do not wait for someone else to validate them. Many people live as prisoners of external recognition. They cannot appreciate their accomplishments unless someone else notices them. They need praise before they believe they are improving. They need approval before they trust their own progress. This makes them dependent. A stronger person learns to recognize his own victories. He knows what it cost him to get through the day. He knows the battles nobody saw. He knows how difficult it was to remain disciplined when nobody was watching. He knows how much strength it took to walk away, stay silent, begin again, or continue when quitting would have been easier. That knowledge is enough. The small wins are not distractions from the larger goal. They are the foundation of the larger goal. Every great achievement is built from ordinary actions repeated long enough to become extraordinary results. The person who wants to become powerful must first learn to respect consistency. A single workout will not transform your body. A single book will not transform your mind. A single act of courage will not eliminate fear, but each one is a vote for the person you are becoming. And the more carefully you notice these votes, the more clearly you begin to understand that transformation is already taking place in the moments you once considered too small to matter. One of the fastest ways to destroy your ability to appreciate your own life is to constantly compare it to the lives of other people. Comparison quietly changes the question you ask yourself. Instead of asking, am I growing? You begin asking, am I ahead of them? Instead of asking, am I becoming stronger? You ask, why do they have what I do not have? And the moment your happiness depends on being ahead of someone else, peace becomes almost impossible. There will always be someone with more money, more influence, more beauty, more success, more attention, or more opportunities. If your satisfaction depends on being superior, then your satisfaction will always be temporary. The moment you see someone who appears to be ahead of you, your confidence begins to weaken. You may have made progress, but suddenly that progress feels meaningless because someone else has reached a different level. This is the trap. You are comparing your entire life to a carefully selected fragment of someone else's life. You see their success, but not their private anxiety. You see their confidence, but not their insecurity. You see their relationship, but not the arguments behind closed doors. You see their wealth, but not the pressure that comes with maintaining it. You see the result, but not the years of struggle that produced it. And then you look at your own life from the inside. You know every mistake, every fear, every weakness, every failure, every uncertainty. You compare your behind the scenes to someone else's public performance and then wonder why you feel inadequate. The mind becomes especially vulnerable to this when it constantly consumes images of other people's achievements. Every day you are exposed to people announcing their victories, new businesses, new relationships, new homes, new travels, new accomplishments. The human mind is not designed to process this much comparison without consequence. Eventually, you begin to believe that everyone is moving forward except you. This is an illusion created by selective attention. You are seeing the highlights of thousands of people while experiencing every ordinary moment of your own life. The solution is not to hate successful people. Their success is not an insult to you. Someone else's progress does not automatically mean that you are failing. Life is not a single race where one person's victory requires another person's defeat. You must learn to separate inspiration from comparison. Inspiration says, if they can develop, perhaps I can develop too. Comparison says, because they have more, I must be less. One expands your possibilities. The other destroys your appreciation. The most intelligent comparison is with your former self. Were you more disciplined than you were before? Do you understand yourself better? Are you more selective about who receives your time? Do you recover faster from disappointment? Are you less controlled by the opinions of others? Have you developed patience where you once had impulsiveness? These questions measure something real. You are not required to be where another person is. You're required to understand where you are going. A person who constantly looks looks sideways loses awareness of his own direction. He becomes distracted by the paths of others. He begins pursuing goals he never truly wanted simply because someone else achieved them. This is how people spend years climbing ladders that are leaning against the wrong wall. They see someone else receiving attention and decide they want attention. They see someone else becoming wealthy and decide they want wealth. They see someone else entering a relationship and decide they must find one immediately. They see someone else living a certain lifestyle and begin believing that lifestyle is the definition of success. But what if it is not what you actually want? What if your life is not behind? What if it is simply different? There is great power in refusing to let another person's timeline become the standard by which you judge yourself. Some people achieve success early, others develop slowly, some paths are visible, others require years of preparation before anyone notices the result. A seed does not become a failure because it has not yet become a tree. Your life may be in a stage that is invisible to others. You may be learning, recovering, building, or preparing. The absence of visible results does not mean that nothing is happening. Comparison makes you impatient with your own process. It makes you reject the present because you are obsessed with someone else's future. Instead, learn to appreciate the evidence of your own journey. Notice what you understand now that you did not understand before. Notice the people you have outgrown. Notice the habits you have changed. Notice the pain you survived. Notice the standards you have developed. Your life may not look impressive from a distance, but that does not mean it lacks value. The goal is not to become blind to ambition. You should still pursue excellence. You should still challenge yourself. You should still desire growth. But ambition without appreciation becomes a form of slavery. You are always chasing the next achievement because you refuse to recognize the value of the current one. A powerful person can desire more without despising what already exists. He can admire another person's success without using it as evidence against himself. He can learn from others without becoming obsessed with their path. And when you stop measuring your worth against the lives of people you barely understand, you begin to recover the ability to see your own life clearly. Difficult experiences have a way of narrowing your vision. When something painful happens, the mind immediately focuses on what was lost, what was taken, what went wrong, and how unfair the situation feels. This is natural. Pain demands attention. But if you remain trapped inside that first reaction, you may fail to notice something important. Even the most difficult experiences can contain information, lessons, and opportunities that were invisible before the event occurred. This does not mean that every painful experience is secretly good. Some things are genuinely painful. Some losses should be mourned. Some betrayals should be acknowledged. Some failures can leave real consequences. You do not need to pretend that suffering is pleasant or that every tragedy is a blessing. The point is not to romanticize pain. The point is to refuse to let pain become completely useless. When something goes wrong, most people ask, why me? A stronger question is, what can I understand now that I could not understand before? This question changes your position. The first question places you beneath the event. It makes you feel powerless, as if life has attacked you personally and you have no influence over what happens next. The second question makes you an observer. You begin studying the experience instead of simply being consumed by it. A failed relationship may reveal patterns you refuse to see. A business failure may expose weaknesses in your preparation. A betrayal may show you that you trusted someone without truly understanding their character. A rejection may force you to examine whether you were pursuing something because you genuinely wanted it or because you wanted approval. A period of loneliness may reveal how dependent you had become on the presence of others. The pain does not become pleasant because you learned from it, but the experience gains value because you refuse to walk away empty-handed. This is one of the greatest advantages of a disciplined mind. It can extract lessons from situations that were designed to discourage it. Many people suffer the same experience repeatedly because they only experience the pain but never study the pattern. They are betrayed but never ask what signs they ignored. They fail but never analyze why. They enter the same kind of relationship with the same kind of person and are surprised when the same result appears. Pain without reflection becomes repetition, but pain combined with awareness becomes information. You must learn to examine your difficult experiences with honesty, not with self-hatred, not with endless blame, with precision. What did this reveal? What did I ignore? What did I misunderstand? What should I never repeat? What must I improve? What remains within my control? These questions transform suffering into instruction. A rejection may teach you that your worth cannot depend on one person's decision. A loss may teach you that nothing should be taken for granted. A failure may teach you that desire alone is not enough. Preparation and discipline are required. A betrayal may teach you that trust should be built through evidence, not simply through words. The experience becomes a teacher, and sometimes the teacher is harsh, but harsh lessons are still lessons. There is also opportunity hidden inside disruption. Difficult experiences often force people to leave situations they would have remained in forever. A painful ending may create space for a new beginning. A failure may redirect you toward a path better suited to your abilities. A period of isolation may give you the silence necessary to hear your own thoughts. When everything is comfortable, people rarely question their direction. Pain interrupts comfort. It forces you to look. It exposes weaknesses. It reveals dependence tendencies. It shows you where you have been living unconsciously. This is why some people become stronger after hardship while others become bitter. The event alone does not determine the outcome. The interpretation matters. One person says the world has destroyed me. Another says the world has shown me something I needed to understand. The second person is not denying the pain. He is refusing to surrender his future to it. You may not control what happened, but you can influence what the experience produces in you. You can become more careful without becoming paranoid, more selective without becoming cold, more ambitious without becoming desperate, more independent without becoming isolated. The goal is not to become untouched by life. The goal is to become capable of being touched by life without being permanently defined by every wound. Some of your greatest strengths may come from the very experiences you once believed would destroy you. The difficult years may have taught you patience. The rejection may have taught you independence. The failure may have taught you discipline. The loneliness may have taught you self-knowledge. You do not have to be grateful for every painful thing that happened to you, but you can become grateful for the strength, wisdom, and clarity you developed because you refused to let those experiences be meaningless. Many people spend their entire lives waiting for the future before they allow themselves to appreciate the present. They tell themselves that happiness will begin when they earn more money, reach a certain level of success, find the right person, move to a better place, or finally become the person they believe they should be. They are always preparing to live, but rarely living while they prepare. This is one of the great traps of ambition. There is nothing wrong with wanting more. Growth is necessary. Goals give direction. Discipline creates possibilities. You should pursue improvement, build your skills, strengthen your position, and create a better future. But there is a difference between building the future and sacrificing every moment of the present to it. If you constantly tell yourself, I will appreciate my life later, you may eventually discover that later has become your entire life. The future is important, but it is never guaranteed. The present is the only part of life you can actually experience. You can plan for tomorrow, but you cannot live tomorrow today. You can work toward a better life, but you cannot postpone every moment of peace until you reach your final destination. A person who understands this does not abandon ambition. He simply refuses to become a slave to it. He can pursue wealth without believing that he is worthless until he becomes wealthy. He can pursue success without treating every current failure as proof that his life has no value. He can desire a better relationship without believing that being alone makes him incomplete. This balance is rare. Most people live at one extreme or the other. Some become so focused on the future that they forget to appreciate what they already have. Others become so comfortable with the present that they stop growing. The stronger position is to build while appreciating, to remain ambitious without becoming permanently dissatisfied. You can be grateful for the life you have and still want to improve it. These two ideas are not opposites. You can appreciate your current home while working toward a better one. You can value your current skills while continuing to develop. You can enjoy your present relationships while becoming more selective about the people you allow into your future. The mistake is believing that appreciation requires you to stop wanting more. It does not. Appreciation simply prevents desire from becoming hatred toward your current life. Without appreciation, ambition becomes endless hunger. Every achievement becomes temporary. You reach one goal and immediately create another. You receive recognition and immediately search for more. You earn money and then decide that the next amount will finally be enough. But if your mind has not learned to appreciate, no amount will ever satisfy you. The problem will not be the goal. The problem will be the mind pursuing it. This is why you must learn to notice the present while building the future. Notice the moments that will not return, the ordinary conversations, the quiet mornings, the people who are still beside you, the opportunities you currently possess, the abilities you once wished you had, the freedom you may not fully recognize because you have become accustomed to it. One day you may look back and realize that the period you were desperate to escape contained moments you would give anything to experience again. This is the strange cruelty of human nature. We often appreciate things only after they are gone. We appreciate health after illness, freedom after restriction, people after separation, youth after age, time after it has passed. Wisdom is learning to appreciate something before loss teaches you its value. This does not mean living in fear of losing everything. It means becoming aware while you still possess it. Do not wait for a future version of yourself to give permission to enjoy the present. You are allowed to appreciate the progress you have already made. You are allowed to rest without having completed every goal. You are allowed to experience happiness before your life is perfect. You are allowed to enjoy a moment without knowing how long it will last. In fact, the temporary nature of life is precisely what makes attention so important. The moment does not need to last forever to matter. A sunset is beautiful because it changes. A conversation is valuable even though it ends. A chapter can be meaningful even though it eventually closes. The goal is not to possess every good thing permanently. The goal is to be present enough to recognize it while it is there. Build your future, prepare, improve, take risks, develop yourself. But do not become so obsessed with the person you are trying to become that you despise the person you are today. The future should be built on the present, not used as an excuse to reject respect it. And when you learn to pursue what is next while appreciating what is now, ambition stops feeling like an endless escape from your current life and becomes something far more powerful. A deliberate journey built by someone who knows that the destination matters, but the moments along the way are the life he is actually living.